Collectively, Alter Bridge and Tremonti have written over 150 different songs about a myriad of topics, and some of them just so happen to work perfectly for movies and television. So here are 5 Alter Bridge and Tremonti songs that double as Hollywood soundtracks. By the way, this video may have some pretty big spoilers, so if you haven't seen any of the things that I'm talking about, this is your warning. Way back in the early 2010s, when I first discovered Alter Bridge through their album AB3, one of my favorite songs off the record was Fallout. This is a track I've barely ever discussed on this channel, mainly because I don't find myself listening to it often anymore, but it's certainly one of the cooler tracks from the record. What made me want to revisit this song today is its similarities to one of my favorite movies growing up, Avatar. At the end of the second act of this film, the Omatakaya's massive sanctuary home tree is razed to the ground by Colonel Quaritch and the humans. Jake Sully, the main character, is powerless to stop this from happening, and in the haunting aftermath of the destruction, he's exiled from the tribe. When Jake finally has the chance to get back into his body and he's walking alone among the ashes, that really brings to mind the song Fallout. The lyrics describe a man wandering alone, searching for truth and meaning in life, which is very similar to Jake's struggle up until this point in the movie. In the second verse, Miles sings, "All he once embraced, he now disowns." And just like in Avatar, Jake has become enraptured by Na'vi culture to the point where he feels more at home with them than he does with his own species. More specifically relating to the scene that I described, Jake is left for dead by the Omatakaya in the wake of the destruction, but he's still hoping to right his wrongs. In the bridge of Fallout, Miles sings, "Left behind he's walking, burning still he tries, to unearth the meaning to this life." To me, the similarities are so strong that it's almost like Miles wrote this track specifically about Avatar. Though I know that's probably not the case. It's just an example of how completely unrelated pieces of art can blend together seamlessly in a way that nobody suspects, and I find that super cool. So I know the title of this video only said Alter Bridge and film, but we're gonna expand the list to include Tremonti and TV shows, because this next one is where I got the idea for this video in the first place. The opening track of Tremonti's 4th record, A Dying Machine, is titled Bringer of War, and there could not be a more perfect match for it than Game of Thrones. So in the accompanying novel for A Dying Machine, the character Ares is a vessel, basically like an android from Blade Runner, and he's frustrated with the way that other vessels are being treated like lesser beings and servants to the humans. I won't spoil his story completely, but basically he becomes the leader of a rebellion against the human race and deems himself the, quote, bringer of war. Now, take a look at Daenerys Targaryen from Game of Thrones. She's treated as a lesser being, essentially sold into slavery as a wife or sex slave of the Dothraki. Over time, she gets fed up with this treatment, and eventually she rallies the troops to take on the leaders of the world and overthrow them with force. Sound a little familiar? These two stories share so many similarities, I almost wonder if Mark was watching Game of Thrones when he got the idea for Bringer of War. Everything about the track is a perfect fit to underscore Dany's conquest across Essos, from the militaristic snare march at the beginning to the pounding double kick during the bridge that sounds like Dothraki horses galloping across the desert. And in case that's not enough evidence, check this out. One of Daenerys' many titles given to her throughout the show is Breaker of Chains. Guess what the second verse of this song starts with? That's right. I am the breaker of chains. At this point, I think someone just needs to make a fan cut of the Mother of Dragons with Bringer of War underneath it. It would be a perfect match. Next up is another song with a direct tie to a specific character from the big screen. This time, it's Alter Bridge's Doom-inspired track Indoctrination, partnered with Lord Henry Blackwood from the 2009 movie Sherlock Holmes. I don't know about you, but I loved this movie as a kid. Iron Man and Tropic Thunder had just come out, so Robert Downey Jr. was like my Hollywood fixation at the time. Nowadays, I'll admit it's maybe not the most faithful adaptation of Arthur Conan Doyle's literary works, but it's a well-made movie with an incredible score, and it's a lot of fun to watch. Now, as for the comparison to Alter Bridge, Lord Blackwood is this dark, mystical cult leader attempting to take over British Parliament by murdering any of its members who don't support him. As Sherlock uncovers, his whole bit about having magical powers and whatnot is all a ruse for the sake of tricking politicians into following his every word. Seeing as Miles explicitly described that Indoctrination was inspired by a documentary about a cult leader, I feel like this song is the perfect match for this character. The song's lyrics discuss playing the fool's messiah and being caught in a spell. There's even a recurring line about being indoctrinated in the fire, and Blackwood uses fire to murder a traitor to his cause and simultaneously fool others into believing he has magical powers. Indoctrination is admittedly one of my least favorite Alter Bridge songs, but every time I hear the lyrics, I think of a character like Lord Blackwood from Sherlock Holmes. If you haven't seen the movie, I highly recommend watching it at least once, simply for this comparison and the remarkable score. I promise you'll have a good time. If you're enjoying this video, make sure to hit the like button down below. It helps spread the video to a lot more people, and it's a free and easy way to support this channel. So thanks. Let's jump back over to Tremonti for another TV mega hit, though this one should be a little less polarizing than Game of Thrones. One of my all-time favorite shows, like many, is Breaking Bad. The chaotic escapades of Walt and Jesse constructing and then subsequently dismantling a meth empire in Albuquerque were some of the most entertaining episodes of television I've ever seen. The ebbs and flows of the love-hate relationship between Jesse and Mr. White were captivating to watch. When looking at it from Jesse's perspective, I find their relationship is perfectly described by Tremonti's third album opener, My Last Mistake. I swear, every single line in this song is perfect for Breaking Bad. You provide the loss that builds inside me. Walt was responsible for Jane's death, Jesse's estrangement from Andrea, and ultimately her death too, and the overall collapse of Jesse's life. I'm the one who will take your place. Jesse learns the meth recipe and is groomed by Mike and Gus to take over Walt's position as head cook. I'm your fatal wound. Jesse is Walt's biggest weakness and partially why he dies at the end of the show. And of course, the most amazing comparison. Pull me inside, draw me nearer, and you will meet your end. In the final showdown against Jack and the neo-Nazi gang, Walt decides to tackle Jesse and shield him from gunfire, suffering a fatal gunshot wound in the process, but saving Jesse's life. In a way, they really are each other's last mistakes. Because of Walt, Jesse loses everyone close to him and is forced to flee to Alaska to get a fresh start. And because of Jesse, Walter ultimately ends up dying. Talk about poetic justice, huh? All right, before I share my last entry, I've got a couple of honorable mentions. First, I'm sure many of you have either heard of or watched the new show, The Last of Us. Well, as soon as I saw it on HBO, I thought of Tremonti's The Last One of Us from his latest album, solely because the names are nearly identical. If you dig deep, I think that there could be some similarities between the two besides the title, but I think that they're pretty different in all other regards. And secondly, Alter Bridge's track Pay No Mind from Walk the Sky deserves a shout out, since it was literally inspired by a movie called The Big Short. The film is a satirical comedy about the 2008 housing crisis and subsequent recession, and it is fantastic. I didn't include it as a formal entry on the list because it felt a little too easy, but I still think it deserves a mention. Now, let's move on to the final song. In high school, I loved binging another AMC super hit by the name of The Walking Dead. Like many others, I abandoned the show after the decline in quality following Rick Grimes' exit, but during the heyday of the show, it was one of my favorite pastimes. A rather famous moment from the show occurs in season 5, episode 10, as the survivors wander through the wilderness of the eastern United States, barely clinging to life. Rick delivers a chilling but rousing monologue during which he name drops the show, saying, quote, "We are the Walking Dead."
We tell ourselves that we are the Walking Dead.
And after my first time listening to the second track of Alter Bridge's newest album, Dead Among the Living, I immediately thought of this scene. Similar to how Rick tries to motivate his group to keep pressing on with the promise of a better life in Washington, D.C., Miles sings words of encouragement to transform the listener's mindset and get them out of the gutter. He says, "Here you are, a broken, weary soul with no place left to go." And later, "You are so much more than who you choose to be." In The Walking Dead, the survivors are lost and hungry, nearly at their breaking points. They're all just ready to give up and die. But Rick assures them that as long as they keep pressing on, things will get better and their lives will improve. Of course, this one does have some differences to it, since Dead Among the Living also lightly chastises the subject for being set in their harmful ways. But ultimately, I feel like the message is more or less the same. And really, you can't beat the connection between the two titles. They're practically synonymous. So that was a little more than 5 songs by Alter Bridge and Tremonti that double as Hollywood soundtracks. Let me know if you enjoyed the video and make sure to share your suggestions for other comparisons or video ideas in the comments. If you want to watch more Alter Bridge content just like this, then check out the playlist that's on screen now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.